Perfect. So I think I'll now close my chat and um, I think I'll get started. Perfect. Rishu. Hello, Mukesh sir. Perfect. Hyderabad
Yep.
also, we have a meetup today. Perfect. So here we go. So thank you all for joining on a Saturday morning, afternoon, and for some people who mentioned on the chat, very, very late night or very, very early morning from Latin America. So thank you so much for joining the first session of Agentic Architects program. So how this program really came into the picture was it's been a few months, or maybe I would say an year, where everyone in the world started talking about agents. They started talking about how AI is going to be implemented in their enterprises, what their roles are going to look like with the adoption or mass adoption of agents. And we started doing a lot of engagements on how to build agents, how to build the orchestration, what are the different tools and products around it. And while we were doing all that, we saw that the adoption within some enterprises was really accelerating. And there was a clear gap. The gap was, how do you have an end-to-end visibility of what an agentic architecture looks like? What will be a developer doing, and what is the entire value chain? Who are the different people in that value chain, and what does a full-on agentic automation implemented in organization look like? So that's where we came together. We had a lot of brainstorming, a lot of back and forths, including the logistics of when we should do this activity. Should we do it on weekday? Should we do it on a weekend? Obviously, there was no time where we could engage everyone, and that's how we somehow settled on a Saturday morning India time. So I hope this works. But please, since this is the first session, I want to request everyone, please do share this with all your colleagues, all your networks. Share the program that you're attending today on your socials, what you like, what you feel should also be covered, what are the insights that you are really taking up. And that will really help us improving the program, and also get this communication and messaging to the right audience. One thing that we've always noticed when we do tech sessions is they don't age very well, because what is relevant today might not be relevant tomorrow, because the industry is evolving so fast. And that's where we have tried that the conversations happening in these days is extremely fundamental, because the fundamentals don't change. The interface might change, the way you do things might change, the features, capabilities might change, but the fundamental, the basics doesn't change. And that's what we will really be trying to cover in these sessions. Keep the session interactive. Now, since we have quite a bit of people who have joined in, we won't be able to during the session have the conversations ongoing. So we will keep the audio off at that time, but we anyways have a Q&A portion at the end where you'll be able to unmute yourself. Till then, please park your questions on the chat. We have other speakers as well who might not be speaking at that time. So when a question of yours pop up, the experts will try their best to address those points as well. So while the session is ongoing, I'll make sure that we will have different links and resources being shared on the chat. So please stay updated, or please keep an eye on that as well. I just saw that we are now 500 people. So congratulations. We're already a very strong community of the future agentic architects. Mukesh, can you go to the next one, please?
Yes.
Awesome. So I hope all of you were able to see the entire program, not just this session, and hope you have also registered for the other sessions too. If not, it's totally fine. I'll share the link over here. Please do share that link further in all the groups that you're part of where you feel this content might be relevant. It's not about getting more numbers or more people. It's just about making sure that the message reaches to all the right people. I see Nasir already part of sharing the same with my team, also on LinkedIn. So good to see Mukesh. Yes, Mukesh, we got some fans here. It's good to see Mukesh for me as well. It's been a while that we have been we have been missing him. So now taking you to the program overview. So we are having it's a five session activity. So four of those sessions are happening on a Saturday. So today and next two more Saturdays we will be doing these sessions. In case by any chance you are missing out on one of those, it's fine. The recordings are anyways being done and you will be able to consume it. But I would highly recommend you still try and join live, because it will have its own vibe, it will have its own interaction that you would really you could really use. And the last session on agent governance is something that we are doing on a Thursday, so I hope you will be able to join that as well. um, I'll share the links to the overall program page where you can register for each of those sessions on the chat. So you can register for the rest of the sessions in case you have not able to do that. Samiksha, where do I get the recording? Where do I watch the recorded video of the session? Perfect. So the link which I share where you can register for the session, the recording will also be available and uploaded on the same platform as well. So you'll be able to see it over there. Awesome. So now looking at the experts, so this group kind of assembled for the first time, I would say, together for a webinar series last year when everyone was having a buzz on agentic automation, and that's where the trio got together to take up the conversation on how do you transition from an automation on RP or a low code developer to an agentic developer or an agentic builder. The program really did well. I believe some of you were part of that too. And I have a question regarding the licensing costs. Multiple companies moving from UI but 400 cost. Okay, let me look at the questions a bit later. I'll address those. So once the program started, that actually helped us with the roadmap of what people are actually looking for as well, and what we need to go further in terms of taking the initiative to address the community's questions and community's challenges. So I hope that this program also becomes the same. Let's keep this a thread to understand what you would be requiring from the community, what we can provide, what content, what kind of channels are you really looking for, and through that we will be able to create programs which suit you the best. So here are the speakers. You might already have seen them in some platform or the other if you're not already following them. So we have three MVPs here. Mukesh Kala, who is with Boundaryless Group. We have Manoj, who is the VP at NatWest, and we have Satish Prasad from Iris Software. So just before I hand it over to Manoj, Satish, and Mukesh, few house rules I want to kind of let everyone know. Whatever you see here, nothing is confidential, everything is to be shared in public. If you want the PPTs, if you want anything, everything will be available on the event landing page. So I'll be sharing the link over there. Just make sure that you join those groups, so you will be getting all the resources that you require in there. Again, keep the conversation going on chat. We want to make sure that we answer as many questions as possible, and most importantly, we will have quizzes towards the end of all the sessions. The quiz is to one, try and see if you are really paying attention through the day. And for every quiz, we have the top three winners, where we'll be giving away $50 of UiPath brand vouchers, swag vouchers. So you can buy some cool swags for yourself. So please be attentive in all the sessions. Every session will have this quiz, and please perform the best in those quizzes as well. So my name is Rohit. I manage the UiPath community for APAC. I'm based out of Bangalore, India as well, and here I share it with. Here I open up the floor for Manoj, Mukesh, and Satish. Guys, over to you.
Thank you, Rohit, for the introduction, and thank you for starting up the sessions. Okay, a quick introduction, guys. My name is Mukesh. I would be one of your speaker today. I have a decade of experience using RPA, UiPath, automation, Agentic. Professionally, I'm working for a company called Boundaryless Group based out of London today. I have been a 6-time UiPath MVP and happy to be here. Over to you, Manoj.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Hello, guys. Good morning. First of all, a massive thank you to all of you for joining such a big number on a weekend. I can see the numbers are constantly increasing as we speak. Now we have reached 558 participants, which is an amazing number. So, talking about myself, I'm from Delhi. You already know my name. I've been with the industry for the last 18 years or so. Currently, I'm working with you say one of the largest bank in the UK into the RPA and analytics domain. I'll also be a part of this session as a speaker. I'm also UiPath MVP. I do write blogs, and I'm also really excited to share my knowledge with you all. Thank you. Over to you, Satish.
Yeah, thanks, Mukesh and Manoj. So, welcome everyone. And uh, I am basically a solution consultant who manages the deliveries as well as positioning the UI path in correspondence how other tools are doing in a market. So, my roles and responsibility include, building lot many agentic solution, positioning them, how it will be working for the better enterprise management. And I'm also UiPath MVP for last 5 years. And I do manage RPA bots.world, which is pretty old blog in this area where you should be able to see a lot of detailed content about UiPath and agentic solutions as well. So happy to be here and we'll be continuing this for next 5 weeks.
Thank you, Satish. Okay, great. So with that, I will kick off the session. Guys, I hope you are able to hear me clearly and my screen is also visible, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this would be our agenda for today, right? We are not building something like hands-on session, but the first thing is a lot of you joining this session, we understand that you are coming from a RPA background. So, and that there is a fear that my RPA skills are getting obsolete. And it's the same questions which we are getting again and again. What happens to RPA? What happens to this? What happened to that? Right? So we want to clear that narrative that why, first of all, why agentic? The second is where your clear comparison of RPA and agent comes, then how the agentic system will work, and then we will slowly jump into something which is called a framework. And that's where we are going to understand like perception, planning, tools, and then we are going to see that how all of this works together to match enterprise automation use case. So this would be more or less our agenda for today. Okay, I hope you guys have access to the chat. So in during the conversation, I will ask some questions. So please feel free to answer it in the chat as well. Okay. Now, the first question is why RPA alone is no longer enough? So we started with RPA, robotic process automation. UiPath was doing great, but what happened all of a sudden that people started shifting to agentic? So RPA still remains valuable. The first thing is because RPA was doing everything which is a deterministic execution, which simply means that I knew that what are the steps as an automation the bot has to take. Go to a portal, download the Excel, do this, do that. Everything was able to happen. Then it has stable transaction flows and it has cross system automation, meaning that I could automate Excel, web, SAP, database at the same time. Then eventually the process complexity increased. So RPA started with the deterministic execution and then something came which was called unstructured input. So we started from structured, semi-structured, unstructured. So when I say unstructured, we are talking about documents, paragraph, long list of data which could be in JSONs, right? Any unstructured input came. Now the process became more complex because the exception rate were high. When you were talking about the deterministic execution, the exception rate were less. But as soon as the complexity increased, unstructured input came, the exception rate also increased. And now, instead of having decision where you actually know what has to be done, it became something towards context dependent decision that if this happened, do this, if that happened, do that. So the complexity of process increased. And now, today, if I talk about automation, it requires execution. Definitely, yes. It needs a decision support, which simply means that I need to take a decision on the spot, and it is something which is not deterministic. And then we need something which is orchestration with governance. When I talk about orchestration, we are talking about using humans, agents, robots, automation, orchestration, everything together in a single platform, but with a proper enterprise governance. So when all of this happened, that's where RPA was like, okay, this is too much, and that's where RPA was no longer enough. Now, if you see this, if you see it from a holistic view, the execution still remains a strength. The robot continue to perform well where the logic is explicit and repeatable. I have something which has to be done 100 times a day, 2000 times a day. RPA is still an answer. Workflow become more ambiguous. Previously, the starting point was something else, but now the starting point became emails, document, approval, which require an interpretation. So the automations are expected to read the data from an email, understand the context, and do something. Where RPA a shortcome. Now, orchestration becomes central. This is what I was talking about. Human judgment, enterprise control, and all of that happen. So if you see from theme wise, previously what we were doing was a task automation. And now we have to do something which is called governed workflow orchestration, where human agents, robots are working together. Okay. Now, the question arises, okay, I understand that the industry shifted, a lot of unstructured data came, a lot of different requirements have evolved, the business requirements are changing. Does RPA still creates value or not? Okay, let's see that. Yes. Why does RPA strongly creates value? The first thing is structured demands, form, records, predictable transaction. There would be still industry and use cases where there is structured demands, and that's RPA hands down does the best. We already have seen that system execution, triggers, update, login, log out. You do not need agents for this, right? That still can be done with RPA. RPA and as an automation had speed, consistency, traceability, which means that RPA had actually taught you that how you can build a process with speed, consistency, and traceability, which means that whatever I am doing today can be traced. And the big thing was whenever there was a system where we wanted to automate something, if that system does not have an API, how would you automate that? Right? I'm going to a bank, it has a very legacy system. RPA was still the answer for you. Are all the legacy system automated? Is everything on agentic? The answer could be no today. That's where RPA still creates value. Okay. Now, if I talk more about industries, right? So what has happened is the input has become less structured. Email, PDF, notes, all of that are the starting point of business work now. When I was doing an automation, the business used to tell me that, okay, start with this Excel. Now, when I go to the requirement gathering as a business analyst, the people say that the starting point is an email. The starting point is a note. The starting point is a complex JSON. The decision become contextual, right? Now, instead of having the data in the Excel, we are asking the automation to define it from the intent. Prior context, business risk has increased. And this is what I was talking about, the orchestration become non-optional. So when you have a lot of data, you have a lot of decision point, you have a lot of exception, your team lead or your manager or your leaders wants to build a system which is safe, compliant, accountable, and it is operationally working well, right? So this has changed over a period of years. Now, I would like to take a pause, and can anyone tell me, since you guys are already in RPA, right? Where do you think only standalone RPA breaks down? What are the situation? Maybe just put one liner, right? Where do you think the RPA shortfall? If I'm not having AI, if I'm not having any, okay, UI automation, okay, UI automation, okay, context-based decision where human intervention was needed, right? Decision making, right? Infrastructure, unexpected reasoning where the process changes, absolutely correct, right? So let's see what I have got. Now, the limitation is, okay, automation itself, but where we have a deterministic layer. So let me just show this one. Now, assuming that I have a situation where I have an email triage, okay, where you have a lot of email which is coming and your process wants to understand its intent, what is written in the email, how critical is the email. You have to understand the business context, and all this business context is changing as per email wise. So just imagine an automation where you have to do this. Standalone RPA might not be able to do that. Then document understanding. Document are changing. Structure changes, underlying definition changes, business requirement changes, RPA will shortfall. Edge cases where you have to build a logic and that continuously changes depending on the different situation. Long running workflow where you have to maintain the states. There are multiple system hands off and you need a governance layer on top of it to manage all of that, their RPA breakdown. You have some sensitive decisions which involves cost, compliance, reputational risk, strong advisory control, their RPA kind of shortfall. So more or less what you guys told, this is where RPA was working, and when all of this came, standalone RPA breakdown. Now, if I am today sitting at an architect or a senior developer level, if those kind of automation comes to me, what could be a high level emerging model for me going forward? In the automation world, we knew that, okay, do this automation, put it, run it 100 times, put an orchestration layer, and that's it. If I have to see that, if yes, I understand that RPA was doing this requirement changes, how would the emerging operating model look like? First thing, because if you remember this previous one, here, email triage is coming, unexpected documents are coming. So if we have to build a new architecture, if we have to build a new operating model, how that should look like? The first thing is we should have something which is an interpretation layer, which simply means that, okay, I understand that we are getting 1000 emails. We have to understand the intent, context, and the recommendation. So I need an interpretation layer on top of this, which could actually interpret the input, right? The next thing is execution layers. Okay, I understand the intent. I understand that this email has been done with this agent. The classification has been done. Now, who is going to do the execution? I need something which is called execution layer, which will take care of the transaction, system access, data movement. You can relate this to your RPA. Then once this is done, when all of this is happening, chances are there that I might be interacting with multiple different systems, multiple APIs, multiple UI automation, and also humans in the loop. I need a supervisor layer at the top, which is taking care of approval, execution, judgment, all of that together. And lastly, I need a controls layer, which means that if I am building such a complex solution, I need policies, I need monitorings, I need guardrails, right? So the next upcoming model or the operating model would be, think it in 4 layers: interpretation layer, execution layer, supervisory layer, and control layer. So when I say that I have this complex requirement, you have to think that which layer I have to put, and these are the 4 layers. This is at a very high level. Into the upcoming sessions, we would be going into deep down in each of these. Okay. Now, each layer is asked to do a different job. Okay. Now, taking my same example, email input, right? The first thing is there is an email which has come and we have to do some actions. Now, interpret, classify intent, and access the content. So if you have to build a solution, guys, I'm seeing some of the chat that screen is not moving. Is it only for some of you, or you are able to? Rohit, Manoj, can you confirm, please?
I see the email
I can.
triage.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, fine.
we can.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take an example, right? So I am having a use case where I have to do a email triage use case. What is the first thing I would need to do? I would need to interpret the email, which means that I need to classify the intent, access the context. Then I need to execute, try to relate it to our previous slide: interpretation, execution, supervision, and control. Now, if I have to build the same automation with an AI powered thing, to interpret, I would need to classify the intent. To execute, meaning I need to update the mailbox. To escalate means I need a human intervention now. Why do I need a human intervention? There would be use cases where the email has low confidence. I need to escalate, and then I need to have some kind of audit. So this means that a most majority of the use cases can be done with the next high level operating system, which we just discussed. Okay. Now, we understand that this is slightly shifting now. What does it mean for the automation team? You can be a junior developer, senior developer, team lead, and I call all of us as automation team. So what are the skills which I retain, and what are the skills that I need to learn more? So as RPA, you should retain, you already know process design, exception handling, system execution, reliability. So these are the skills which you should retain and focus more on. Then if I am expanding, these are the skills. We'll talk about more into deep details, but at a high level, you need to understand what is context aware decision, how do I involve humans in the loop, orchestration and governance. So at a very top level, your all the skills which you have today are not going away. I'm going to talk more about that, but there are two set of your total skills. So if you assess yourself as an individual, you already have some skills from your RPA which you have to retain. The only thing you need to do is just add and expand your skills. It's not like that my all the old skills are gone and I need to completely learn a new skills, right? So that is the capability implication. Now, whenever we are thinking of an solution, we always thought about automation first. Now, there is this thing where is a simple mind shift which you will do of asking the right set of question, you would be able to frame it completely, right? What do I mean by that? So whenever we are talking about the bots, we say that what task can I automate with a robot? I am still talking about a task like going to an email, downloading the data, putting into a website, putting the data into a database, generating a report. However, the framing should be like this. What outcome am I trying to achieve? Which part belong to deterministic, which part belong to AI, and which part belong to human judgment? I'll take a pause for you to digest this slide because this will become important mostly for the analysts, the agentic business analyst. So whenever you are taking a requirement, you're talking to the business, we always used to think in this question, what task I can automate with your robot? If I'm from an automation mindset, I'll say that, okay, you have 10 tasks. Out of these 10 tasks, 6 of them can be done by a robot. 3, you need human intervention, action center, humans in the loop. However, into the agentic, the question now should be what outcome the business is trying to achieve? 10 outcomes. Out of those 10 outcomes, which are the part which are deterministic, which means that where I can implement RPA, where do I need AI and where do I need human judgment? So if you are thinking of getting the requirement in this way, that would change your task framing shift. So the decision question has now moved from task automation to outcome orchestration. Okay. The message: RPA did not lose value. RPA is still there. The surrounding process and the environment has become more demanding. RPA was still there, is still there. And in my upcoming slide, you will see that why I'm so focused on this, right? The thing is, as the business requirement are growing, we need to add more skills to us. And that's why RPA is necessarily, but no longer sufficient for the enterprise workflows. Okay. Now, let's talk about the market signals, right? This is what me, Mukesh talking, right? Why would you trust me? So I go to internet, you can do your own research. I know you guys are all smart enough to do your own researches, right? So market, when I talk about market, I'm just talking about the general IT industry and AI industry. So analyst directions. So Gartner highlights that the AI native development platforms are going to increase. Multi-agent system are a strategic trend, which means that now industries are not only focusing on a single agent, but they want to build multi-agent system, and people are now looking for secure and responsible scalable AI. If we see from the platform side, that was the analyst. Where exactly the platforms are going? Cloud vendors are releasing managed agents runtime, which means that people wants to have agents running directly onto the cloud and managed runtime. So you do not want more of the infrastructure burden onto the companies. And that's why there was something which was called infrastructure, which was there. Low code platforms are adding the agent flows. There are a lot of new agent building platforms which are getting popular. And then the framework or the platform, which is we need some platform which can have traceability, memory management, humans in the loop. Now, if we see from a developer direction, what actually developers are doing now, as the business requirement has grown from RPA and expanded, the developers needs now tools or software programs that can manage states, memory, evaluation. APIs and contracts matter more than the screen clicks. Now, developers are looking for integrating with multiple different systems, and they are asking the businesses that get me an API for all of these systems. RPA become one execution option. RPA alone is not able to do everything, so it is one execution option, and not everything has to be done with agentic as well, right? Risk direction. Now all of this is happening. Not everything is a happy path. There is something which is happening, which is a risk side. What is the risk? There is a risk of prompt injection, where people are doing a lot of different things with the prompt. There is a high failure of risk because you are just giving an agent and you are giving a chat where anybody can type anything. Autonomy without guardrails. Now, when we have put all of these agents, we need a lot of governance, and observability becomes a production requirement. With RPA, it was easy to control, but now when you build so much big agent, you need a huge governance block on it, right? So this is where the four direction where the market as an industry is heading towards. Okay, why this is important for us to understand? Because that's where you would realize that what I should learn next. You should learn the next thing to become more, I would say, be available for the next set of jobs which would be coming, right? And that's where it is important to understand what the market thinks, where your skills are placed, and why this shift, what we are doing today, is mandatory, right? So this we already discussed, that high value document change, business teams want automation which are ambiguous, AI is practical enough, and all of that. This slide, why RPA developers are well placed. A lot of the people say me that, okay, why do I spend a lot of years since learning RPA and now all of this is gone? Just think about it. You already understand how to decompose a process and workflow control. If I give you like a 10 page of PDDs, as a developer, as a solution architect, you already understood that how do I divide the process into init, let's say get transaction, process transaction, end state. You are able to manage queues. We were able to divide the process into dispatcher, performer. So you already have a skill, which is how do I decompose the process and I control the workflow. You already know how the enterprise system work and behave under automation pressure, right? You already have skills to build enterprise applications, build for maybe banks, utilities, power, energy, all those different sector, and you have made your robots and automation working under pressure. So that skill you already have. You already think about exception path and operational support, right? You already know that what does it mean when the robot fail with system exception? What do I do when the robot fail with business exception? What do I do when there is a complete failure? How do I retry the transaction? What is L1 support, what is L2 support, what is L3 support. Does all of that go away with agentic? The answer is no. You already know all of this. Now, those foundation, whatever you already have, are trustworthy to build a pure agentic system, right? And that's why this small shift is required. Okay, this is the same thing which I have made just in bullets so that you guys understand and think that, okay, whatever I have learned is not obsolete. Process thinking, execution discipline, right? Building reliable bot, API interaction, handling retries, queue, logs, all of that you already know. Business transaction. This is specifically for people who are working into BA, business analyst, right? You already know how do you turn a business rule into execution logic. You already know how do I work with SMEs, how do I work with operation teams, where do I explain the trade-offs in plain language. The developers already know how do I manage the SLA points, execution discipline, process thinking, and all of that. Governance mindset. This one is important, right? We RPA taught us that yes, you built an automation, but it is not enterprise ready. So we always used to think about audits, logs, config files, control points, where human approval was needed, compliance, respect of the operational risk, all of that we have already done. And all of these are the same skills which are still available and would be needed for building a agentic solution. I like to take a pause and ask you guys, whatever you see on the screen, do you think that these are the same skills which would be required to build an agentic solution? Yes or no? If yes, then you already are into the right set. You just need to add more skills on top of it. Okay, Ganesh says yes. Yeah, that's true, right? So RPA, execution, UiPath, automation, whatever you told us has already taught all of this to us. So now I do not need to like panic and say that, okay, now I have to learn a new skill. The skill is a tech part. You need to add some capability, but your mindset is still there. Process thinking, execution wise, business translation, governance mindset. This is your base. Yes, exactly. Somebody said this is your base. Yes, this is the base. And that base you have already cleared by building enterprise application with RPA, right? Now, your skills are more valuable than you think. So process understanding and workflow decomposition. I give you a big process PDD and you are supposed to build a process design out of it. Why does that matter in agentic? Agent would need a clear business goal, action boundaries, and fallback paths. When you are giving the data to an agent, you would need a business goal, boundaries, fallback path. That would come because you guys already understood the process understanding decomposition. You already know how do I manage complex business exception handling. This will be helpful when you are building an agent which is a non-deterministic agent and that needs a disciplined exception handling. Since you have already managed a complex exception handling into the RPA, you can actually handle the non-deterministic behavior of agents, right? During your RPA, you learned and you built compliance, security, operation. You have seen that how do I move my bots from development to testing to pre-prod to prod, all of that you have done. And the same thing in agentic, testing matters even when the output is probabilistic and context dependent. So all of that, your compliance, security, operation, and the testing skills of testing the robot will be applicable to the agentic as well, right? Lastly, important one, stakeholder communication, SLA, and support. Not every requirement somebody is going to tell you, right? You have to talk to the business. You have to understand what is the requirement. You have to maintain the SLA. You have to understand the requirement, draft the requirement, ask the right set of question, support your business stakeholders, right? That you have already done. And that word is exactly required in agentic system because human trust depends on clear explanation, clear escalation path, realistic stakeholder alignment. If I have to take a requirement for an agentic system and I am not aware that how do I communicate to automation SME, I won't be able to take this requirement, right? So that's where your skills are most valuable than what you think. Okay. And with all of this background, this would be my last slide before I pass it to Satish, right? Now, I understand that, okay, cool. Yes, I did RPA, it's not waste. The requirement has changed. I have to expand. Now, the business requirement is changing. The industry is moving something. I have some skills and I need to learn more of the skills. So if I have to put all the skills, all these capabilities into 8 big blocks, what they would be? They would be LLM foundation and prompting, context engineering RAG, tool calling, stateful orchestration and graphs, humans in the loop design, evaluation and observability, security governance, and software engineering and deployment. With my existing skills, if I add all of these skills on top of my portfolio, I would be able to cater all the new coming set of requirements. Okay, with that, I am now inviting Satish to take the mic and let me know, Satish, whenever you are ready. Right. Meanwhile, Satish is coming. Do you guys are now
Yep.
happy about your RPA skills? You feel confident that your RPA skills are not obsolete? Yes. Awesome. That was the messaging we wanted
Right.
to convey, right? Satish, over to you.
Thanks, Mukesh. Thanks for wonderful explanation of how the shift is happening. Now, one thing you might have noticed while Mukesh was talking that RPA is not dead, right? All the skills that you have learned over last 5 years or 10 years, maybe, they are still exist today because you are better positioned into work into agentic era than anybody else in a market. Now, if you look at this particular capability clusters, they are very fundamental. And here we are not talking about any tools. We are not talking about any specific vendor, UiPath, or any specific vendor like Azure. What we wanted to talk here is we have to learn this capability. You choose these capabilities to learn. Technologies, tool chain, vendors, they can come later, right? To explain this in a better way, I have a really good example from my experience of my own team, right? So I have a team member named as Priya, and she is doing RPA for almost 6 years. She knows the finance inbox or the finance process of PO matching and reconciliation better than anybody else in my team. The challenge is now the challenge is there is some new invoices that is coming from a different vendor, and they are quite messy. The existing RPA that worked very well for last 2 and 3 years, now they are breaking, right? So what is the problem there? And how she has to upskill herself so that she should be able to transition the RPA workflow to the agentic workflow. So we'll talk about that. And then I have a team member called Marcus. He's, agentic AI developer. He knows how to write the prompt. He knows what model to select, but he doesn't know how everything will be stitched together so that we can run a full enterprise grade agentic automation in the area. So Mukesh, can you real quick go to the next slide, please? All right. So while these two, Priya and Marcus, they have different skill set together, but none of them are complete because Priya has really good experience of handling the exception, really good experience of what has to be done when there is an invoice of 180K got escalated, what need to be done, and all those kind of things. So for all of these things, she has to also work with other counterpart to learn how the prompt and system designing can work. So now I'll stay here for a second and I'll ask the audience here what all kind of prompting strategy that you have used and what all prompting styles that you have used. Do you know what is zero sort prompting? Do you know examples? Do you know structure output? Can you post some of those one sort? Right. So it is rightly said, you have used many of these, examples where you have zero sort of thoughts, chain of thoughts, a lot of other these tools and techniques are being used. Now, what I'll explain here is, if you compare RPA with agentic system, your prompt is becoming that flow chart. The logic that you have written in a flow chart is now becoming your system prompts. So whether you have to branch it, whether you have to get the structure output, whether you have to identify that when the prompt will fail, or there are classic edge cases, you have to design that way. And there are a lot of tools available in the market. But the one thing that you have to note is, you have to also get the score of your prompts to understand if I am building something which is actually great or which will work for my edge cases or not, right? So those are the techniques that you have to apply. And if you learn this fundamental, obviously you have to learn about LLM foundation, what is model, how it does, what is the prompting, but more importantly, you have to learn how you should be able to design a prompt with role, constraints, refusal boundary design, and structure output, right? So these are the few things that you have to take care. Now, coming back to the example that I was giving of my teammates, Priya and Marcus. So Marcus is a very good engineer, but he has a very limited knowledge of real system, real SAP, real approval limit, real angry vendors. So he cannot work, right? So what we need to do then, right? If they have to work together and build the same process of email to PO matching and PO payment, they have to basically build something which will work for both of the cases, right? Marcus prompt can provide the reliable output or structure output, but it has to be also think for a way where the logic or what has to happen when you don't expect those cases. You have to rebuild, you have to categorize, and you have to also take an output of the confidence score so that you can branch it out, right? Or you have to give an instruction clearly saying that if the amount is greater for amount greater than 5,000, dollar, escalate it to human user. So you have to design it like think it clearly. That's the first foundation. That's the new skill. That's the first thing that you have to learn. And when you master it, most of your flow chart or the messy flow chart that you build for hundreds of invoice templates coming into one flow chart, it will become clean. Mukesh, if you can move to the next slide. So that's the
Satish, you there? I think we can't hear you.
are you able to see
Yeah, we are on the second screen now,
the
Satish. Yeah.
slide number 2, right? New
Yeah.
skills, context engineering rag.
Yeah.
Right, Satish. Yeah, we are on that screen.
Everyone? Okay, perfect. Because some people are saying the screens are not moving, so I'm wondering. All right. So now we talked a little bit about LLM foundations and system prompting and all those, but does it enough? Right? It is not enough. So what we need to do next then, right? If you don't provide the context, it is still wrong half of the time because you are guessing something, right? Say, for example, an invoice come in and there is a policy attached to it. And that policy clearly says what need to be done with those invoices. So that's where the context engineering and RAG comes in. What you can do is for all of these use cases where context is required, you have to build document ingestion pipeline, chunking strategy, metadata design for SOP, or maybe some contract policies. You have to learn a little bit more about how embedding and vector search works. And then not only embedding, but also at the runtime, when we retrieve those information from your context or vector embedding, you have to also return the grounded answers with citations or the refusal logic when there is no supporting document or evidences available in your vector DB. There are a lot of tool sets available in the market. UiPath provides its own way of context grounding. You can create a storage bucket in a UiPath orchestrator. You can ingest your document, and using the embedding model, it will be, creating an index, and that index you can use inside your workflow. There are also a lot of other tools available so that you can bring your context from other vendors as well, like from Azure AI Search, or if you are using Llama Index, for example, or LangChain based indexes, you can also bring that from there. So even if you are not building it in a UiPath ecosystem, but still you can attach to your workflow utilizing some of the toolkits that is available. And if you want to practice the context engineering and RAG, we'll be doing this in few of the sessions that we'll do next, because we'll be building an end-to-end project where we'll showcase you how some of these things can be combined together to make it working, right? So what you can do is you can create a policy assistant, a simple policy assistant of your HR rulebook, and then you can try your hands out. So this new skill will help you to build agent which is aware of context, which is aware of policies, which is aware of context grounding, so that the bot will break only if there is no enough information, but it will always retrieve and act safely because it has enough context grounding for particular use cases. Mukesh, can you move to the next skill, please? Right. Now, I'll slow down here, right? And you will say, tools callings, API and MCP. We already know how to use API in RPA. We have a lot of activities we can directly call the API. We do have UiPath integration services. By utilizing those, you should be able to call a lot of SaaS product like Salesforce, ServiceNow, or many others, right? So what is changing, right? This we already doing for many, many years, right? We are using API. How it is changing is, as of now, when we are calling API, we are calling by passing the contracts and parameters, right? So you know what body that you have to send, and you know the structure output, what you'll be getting. But in agentic system, tool calling doesn't require you to tell, or doesn't require you to pass the data in a structured way. You can define a tool, and then your model or your LLM will understand what signature I have to send, and if the structure output will come from that tool calling, it will automatically map. So basically the API and the function schema that we write deterministically, same logic will apply when we are building a tool calling API and MCP. So in classic example, what will happen is whatever we have built so far, right? All your RPA processes can be utilized as a tool inside your agentic system. So I'll take a same example of Priya and Marcus that you're doing. Marcus has built agentic system, but he doesn't know how he can go inside the SAP, which T code to be executed, and how he should be able to call the SAP from his agentic platform. So what Priya said is, let me build a RPA tool or RPA automation that will go inside the SAP, that will post the PO, and then it will be published as a process inside your UiPath orchestrator, and that published process or automation can be called as a tool in your agentic system. So you can name that as a bot, or you can say that as a tool, because actually it is a tool that will take care, right, of all the things that you have to do in a system of record. So for learning some of these things, we're doing a great hands-on in second session, because second session will be continued detail about MCPs and tools calling an API. So we'll be covering all the protocols, how you should be able to utilize MCP, which is hosted externally, MCP tools that you can create with the UiPath, MCP tools that you can create in Python and any other languages hosted outside UiPath ecosystem, and how you should be able to integrate them. So we have all those three capabilities: MCP as a tool, MCP hosted externally, and MCP hosted and executed externally as well. So all three combinations of things are there, so that you should be able to communicate with third-party system as well. And for this particular skill, tool calling, API, and MCP, we have a detailed session number 2. So I'll not take much time here, because we'll be talking more, and we'll be also building some of these things in a next session. So it will be covered there. Okay. Mukesh, can you move to next slide, please? All right. So now what happened is, the same example that I was talking earlier, what Marcus did initially when he joined the team is he built a workflow, agentic workflow, where he had some of the sample of the invoices from the Priya inbox, and he tried to run a workflow where it was able to extract the information. He has given some prompt and instruction, and then it worked. But when he closed that laptop, and next time or after few days, when he tried to run the same workflow with the same example, the result was different. Why? Because there was no state maintenance, there was no memory, there was no stateful orchestrations. So what we have to do or build next is, the demo will forget everything, and it will not recall how you have handled the dispute last time, or how you have to pause in a middle of a workflow so that a human will come and approve it. So you have to build a stateful orchestration and the graph workflow, where you should be able to pause for a document, pause for approval, pause for a retrieval, and so that long running workflow can be connected. There are a lot of ways of doing things like this. So if you talk about the LangGraph had built-in capability where you should be able to store the states between the different nodes. Google ADK graph workflow also have code first orchestration. You should be also able to store the state of agent into persistent databases, right? And then next time when you execute, you should be able to bring that up so that it will understand what I need to be do. When I say graph workflow, I am not actually considering here any particular vendor specific graph workflow, but they are very common in LangGraph. And they're very common in any workflow based agentic orchestration. So you can treat graph like, edges and nodes, where every node is agent. And then if it has to transition from one node to another node, it will go via edges, right? So that's how it is. And then, there are a lot of things that we have to do, because if it is a long running process, you have to also understand and design a system where it should be resumed from the same step where it has stopped, right? You will not be running the agent from the start, right? So stateful orchestration is a key new skill to learn, and we'll talk more about this, how we should be able to do. UiPath Maestro having some of this capability. LangGraph interrupt pattern has some of these capabilities. And then we'll build one use case or example where it will wait for somebody to stop in middle. And then from there, we should be able to approve and move toward the next step. So that's the skill number 4. Some of these things we are already doing in UiPath long running workflow using the UiPath Action Center, but things has evolved because now you have to also change 2 things. One is state of the execution and then additional data required for moving to the next stage. So both of these things will be taken care by combination with human in the loop. So you need to have stateful orchestration and then human in the loop combined together to make this happen in a real life scenario. Mukesh, if you can move to the next slide, please. All right. So this is, pretty much everyone is talking, right? And we being RPA developers started our journey as an RPA developer. We know human in the loop much ahead of anybody who is doing agentic automation today, right? Reason being, we have seen it. We have seen or we have designed so many processes where something has to be approved before it hit into system of record. Let's take the example of same, Priya handling the PO processing in SAP. What about there is an invoice, which is a very high value 180K dispute, right? It cannot be approved in a few minutes. It has to go through series of approval. So HITL is a pattern. It is not fallback. When you're designing a system, it has to be there. And how you can do that? You can do that on a many things, right? Like in system prompt, you can decide what is the confidence of my structure output. So confidence level is a 1. Then in the structure output, you should be also able to tell some of the recommendations attached, like is this invoice is high value? Should we consider it, like a risk? All of those decisions, or maybe when your grounded policies or the context grounding didn't return any good policy attached to it, then you have to basically go for a human in the loop and exception design. So what we will do is we'll design a refund approval kind of thing where you should be able to basically, whenever these situations happen, like a dispute or additional information is required, or additional approval is required, or additional context is required before it can move to the next step, we can do that using different technique. HITL as a part of UiPath is a UiPath Action Center. Now, because you have UiPath React SDK, so you should be also able to build fully coded React app outside UiPath Action Center. And there also, you should be able to send some of this information for human to approve, reject, and modify before agent can resume, right? Or if you are using any other tool and capability, that is also possible because UiPath has given you the SDK, and utilizing those SDK, you should be able to build that into a different framework as well, right? Now, we know this, and we have done this for many years. Is this change the way we are doing human in the loop? No, it didn't change anything. But what it has added is it has added the more context into it. Previously, when we are doing the RPA, it only gives you the information related to what that particular transaction owns. You are not able to attach this with any RAG base or any institutional knowledge information so that better decisioning can be done on top of that, right? But now you have capabilities and you have context and you do have agentic memory. So you should be able to take more accurate decision on that particular use case. So we'll also learn UiPath, agentic memory, context, and how we should be able to design more on when these kinds of exceptions will occur in our few of the next sessions. Mukesh, if you can go to the next slide, please. Right. This is really the most important slide of this today's session. Because one of the problem with all of these LLM based applications, agents, agentic workflow, agentic orchestration is it worked when I tried. It worked when my colleague tried. It worked when it is running locally, but it didn't work when it moved into production. And after 1 week, it is not at all running what it's supposed to do. So where is the problem? Because LLM systems are non-deterministic in nature. When I say non-deterministic, you'll not be able to control the behavior of the output of LLM by setting harness around it. But what you can do, you can measure the quality of output. You can measure the quality of agent. You can measure that how my agent is working when it is moved into production, or do I need to tweak into it? The same workflow that worked on Marcus system and the Priya system and worked on my system, when moved into production, and it is running for almost 7 weeks, and in the 8 weeks, we have identified that it is not able to extract few fields from the invoices, which are not mandatory, but required for the audit. And those are, there is no if-else kind of rule written which checks those fields, but you are missing those. So how you should be able to evaluate the quality of agent during the build time when you are building it, and during the runtime when it is running into production. How you should be able to observe the quality degradation or the behavior of agent in a real time, and how you should be able to put quality engineering. I'm not saying quality assurance. We are not talking about QA. We're talking about QE, quality engineering, right? How you should be able to build a quality engineering on top of your agentic infrastructure. And this is the bigger area where you have to learn many things, right? Now, let's talk real quick about the ecosystem. What all things are available in the market, how different vendors are doing it. Many of you might have heard LangSmith, because that's the popular one, that's the most popular one in the market today. And you might have also learned about LangFuse, and then Azure has their own, and then AWS has their own. But under the hood, there are some very known principles and very known techniques that has been applied, which is called LLM as a judge. But LLM as a judge is a technique to evaluate the output of your agent. It may work, may not work. And there are a lot of other techniques as well. So how you should be able to measure the behavior of credibility, right? Because anytime your agent tried 10 emails, seemed fine, but on the next morning, it didn't work. So 3 things you have to do. 1, you have to build a golden data set or a golden test data set covering common edge cases and adversarial cases. You have to keep that handy. You can build that golden data set with the help of tools like LangSmith. You can build those data set inside the UiPath ecosystem. They provide the evaluation, and all you need to do is ping the logs and traces, and then it will save that as a data set. So next time when you ship or when you add new features in your agent, you should be able to run the agent with that stored data set, so that you will get to know that whether my agent has drifted or not. Is it producing the same quality result of iteration 1 versus iteration 2? So first thing, build the golden test dataset covering the common edge and adversarial cases. Then create a habit of running evals whenever a prompt, model, and tool definition changes. Make a note of it. Create a habit of rerunning evaluation when a model or a tool definition changes, because the quality of your agents heavily depend on these three things. You might have noticed that today you are using Sonnet 4.6, and the moment you have upgraded to Sonnet 5, some of the things that is working on Sonnet 4.6 is not working on Sonnet 5. Why is the case? You will be also wondering, Sonnet 5 is more powerful. It should work, right? But that's not always the case. So you have to build dataset, and then you have to build evaluation, and you have to build a practice or habit of rerunning the evaluation whenever the prompt, model, and tool definition changes. Can anyone of you tell me how you are doing evaluation as of date today? Have you used any tool? Have you have any access to any of the capability where you are doing evaluation? Anyone can type ways of evaluation set. Varun is saying that's perfect example, sitting in a UiPath Agentic Studio. Anyone else? How you do the evaluation of your agent? Doing basic test, LM as a judge as an evaluation, perfect. Evaluation sets, test cases. Okay. Okay. Exact match. Functioning and test run. All right. So I want to only say two things here because we'll learn more in details about the evaluation, observability, quality engineering, right? The technique that we have applied so far to testing a bot will not work. We have to be a little creative in a sense that by understanding the working of model and working of prompt, right? Golden set is a one thing, but you have to also build some of the KPI, right? Like you are building a workflow, right? And in that workflow, it has 12 steps and 10 tools, right? And your workflow having multiple agents. Each agent has assigned particular tool. So you are evaluating on the basis of the golden data set, but you are not actually gauging that if agent has to call a particular tool, that agent has called that tool or not. If agent has to take 10 steps, has that taken 10 steps or not? Or is it completing before it could? Because LLMs are lazy. Sometimes they report false positive and false negative as well. Even if it didn't complete, it will say I have completed. And then you will see that it didn't call the tool at all. And it didn't perform the task which is supposed to do. There are cases like that. So you have to do these things. And apart from that, you have also to build certain KPI. That KPI will tell you the quality of agents like task completion, right? Tool calling, and those kind of things, so that you will understand how you will be able to. There are a lot of questions.
Rohit, are you able to hear Satish?
No, not me.
Yeah, Satish, I guess broke up. So we'll just wait for a couple of minutes. Satish, you're breaking a little bit.
Somebody has muted me as well.
Okay, now you're back. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. So, okay. So what I was telling is, there are, various techniques to build the KPI and the evaluation set and running on the basis of these skills that we'll learn. But this is the most powerful skill that we have to learn when we are transitioning from the RPA to Agentic Architect. We'll talk more and much in detail for these skills. But if you real quick, Mukesh, go to the next slide, please. And a lot of people here talked about cost. A lot of people has concerns about the agent working into production. And then there are a lot of questions about the autonomy of agent, where what agent can do, what agent cannot do. Because if you cannot explain what agent has done and why it has done, you'll be penalized. And if you're working in a financial industry and if you are not keeping a good record of why agent has taken that decision, likely audit has to happen, right? So the bigger risks surface when agent selected a wrong decision. And how would you be able to control that behavior? So there are many layered architecture. Okay, you have to do some set of things at the security level, some set of things at the governance level, and some set of things for auditing and reporting level as well. So now you might have heard a lot about prompt injection, excessive agency, data leakage, and all of those risks, right? Because if it is not working the way it should work, and if somebody asks you for the records of proof, you will be skewed, right? How to control the prompt injection, how to control the threat model, how to control the behavior of agent autonomy. This is a very big topic, and we have a Manoj here who does it day in, day out. And we have a dedicated session for this security, governance, and responsible autonomy, where he will talk you about how you should be able to build governance about agent security and all of those things. What I tell you here is there are a lot of vendor agnostic and vendor specific tools available in the market. UiPath does has its tool which actually tracks and take care of some of these things that we do as a part of prompt injections, autonomy, and traceability, especially the LM traceability, why, how, when, what decided a particular tool to happen. But we will take this in a very detailed session, and then we'll talk about how you should be able to apply some of the guardrails inside UiPath, some of the guardrails in the code as a static guardrail, some of the guardrails like at the model level, like if you are using AWS Bedrock, those kind of things. So I'll move to the next slide because this will talk in a much detail when Manoj will cover his session. Now, if you look at this slide, in all the previous slide, I have written a keyword called new scale. And in this slide, it is saying only skill. The reason being you already know this. Things that we do today will not change, but there will be additional scope that will be added what we are doing today, right? Like if you take example of things that you will do, because you might be building agent, which is in Python, hosting that on UiPath, orchestrating that as a UiPath, or you might be building UiPath apps as a TypeScript language, which calls the API, pass the JSON, and write a test. But some of these things require a very good software engineering pipeline. So how you should be able to build and deploy it on a UiPath orchestrator, how you should be able to test on the run, how you should be able to configure the environment specific configurations, how you should be able to roll back if something went wrong with your agent. And some of these things we are already doing. We know CI/CD pipeline, we know GitHub, we know automation pipeline, and a lot of these things, right? I wanted to add a few things here. As the UiPath has evolved, UiPath has also given a lot of capability in its platform. UiPath CLI is a perfect example. By utilizing that, you should be able to do a lot of software engineering and deployment steps from the command. And it opens up a door for any CI/CD tool that is available in the market to perform the same thing. GitHub Action is one of the perfect example. You can also utilize Docker for code, for a code first agent like LangGraph and OpenAI agents, or maybe if you are using SDK, or maybe even if you are not utilizing UiPath platform at all, and you have deployed your agent on some other platform, or your agent on some other proprietary agentic platform like Salesforce, you'll be still able to call them, execute them, run inside the UiPath orchestrator under the same governance, security, and all those protocols, right? So there are a lot of things that we can do, and some of these things we know from many years. Some of those things will require more learning, especially the coded agent and the CLI stuff, and things will go from there. So we'll cover this as a part of session number 4, where we'll talk about governance, security, deployment, and all those kind of things. But we'll come there. Mukesh, if you can go to the next slide, please. All right. So we have discussed these 8 clusters of skills that you have learned to learn. As an RPA developer or an architect or a team lead, you already have that process thinking. You already have that execution discipline. You already know how to call an API. All you need to do is learn some of the capability you might be knowing as well, like LLM, RAG, tools calling, orchestration, eval, and governance. This is what you are adding to your skills. So you already have 4 or 5 skill set inside you. All you need to do is add on top of those. And when you add on top of those, it will become a workflow architect. And that's what we aim to. So it is not that you are starting these 8 skills as a new, you are layering right capability on the foundations that you already have. So in next session, in day 2, we'll talk about agentic loop, giving agentic safe hand, which will happen on August 1. We'll turn cluster 3 or the new skill 3, like tool calling MCP and the human in the loop in a working UiPath agent. So that will take care there. Before we go and hand it over back to Mukesh, one thing I wanted to ask here to the group is, if some of you has attended recent interview of where people are asking UiPath agentic questions, can you help put some notes how those questions are different from RPA? What people are asking now? What kind of interview experience you have? Are they asking same? What is orchestrator? Are they asking same? How you should be able to build RE framework? Are they asking same long running workflow? Or are they asking same how you should be able to use a retry mechanism, or kind of calling API inside a workflow? No, things are evolving. Even if you are working as an RPA and you are transitioning your position, or you are transitioning yourself as an agentic developer, or transitioning yourself as an agentic architect, and you go to those interview, even if I ask in my interview, I do not ask these questions. What I ask is how you do the better prompting, how you should be able to score the prompt, how you should be able to build a human in the loop, how you should be able to, control the behavior of agent. What is MCP? What is the guardrail? What is evaluation dataset? These all are the new terms. Even if you are RPA developer, you are going and trying to join as an agentic RPA developer or agentic UiPath developer, these questions will be there, right? So I have one thing for all of you, right? Do you need interview questions which I have prepared for my audience? I have a 400 UiPath Agentic Automation interview questions, entirely dependent on what all new things has been added, right? So I see a lot of people. Yes, I required. Yes, I required. So that is kind of a bonus that I have kept for the end of this session. And I'll just post you the link of my blog. And this is one of the popular article that I have on my blog, which drives a lot of crazy traffic on my platform too. But I'm sharing here for everyone so that you can learn what all those questions are and how things are evolving in a real market if you are positioning yourself as a agentic AI developer or architect. With this, I'll hand it over back to Mukesh, and Mukesh will start taking some of the questions, and we'll also take some of the question, maybe. Thanks, Mukesh, everyone.
Thank you, Satish, and appreciate you sharing your kind of questions to the team, right? So the next section, guys, is the Mentimeter quiz, which Rohit has mentioned and promised at the beginning, that where you have vouchers to win. And yes, so Manoj, over to you. Manoj would be running the quiz for this session. And guys, before you actually jump into this, I just have a request, right? Whatever you have learned about the resource which Satish is sharing, please do share your experience over the social media, tag us, happy to promote you. And kind of that will also encourage the other people also to kind of join these sessions in future. Over
Yes.
to you, Manoj.
Okay.
Also, Mukesh, Manoj, do you think we can keep the audio access on so that if there are any questions, people can ask?
Yeah, maybe after the Menti then.
Should be for
Yeah,
few
We'll
maybe
do
yeah.
that
questions.
after
After
the
the
Menti.
Menti, yeah,
Yeah.
we can go into the
So I
quiz.
see that there are people raising hands, so please keep it on. We'll take it up after the Menti quiz. So yeah, Manoj, over to you.
Perfect. First of all, again, thank you, Mukesh and Satish, for a wonderful session. Now it's time for a quiz. You can see that QR code popped up on your window. You can just scan it, or maybe you can just go to menti.com and type 53836713. And I can see like we have got more than 100 participants joined the call, joined this Menti quiz as well. So it's just to revise what we have learned so far and earn some rewards as well. So my magic number here is 400. I guess we have got more than 400 participants. So if roughly around 400 participant joins, then maybe we can start the quiz.
I have a question, Manoj. Am I
Yep.
allowed, and me and Satish are allowed to participate?
Yeah. Yeah, you can, but you will not get the vouchers.
Okay. Because I haven't
Anybody
seen
can,
the questions.
even Rohit can also join, but he'll not get the vouchers because
He's
he's the one who is giving the vouchers. All right, so we have got
okay. 200. Still people joining.
two 269. Okay.
Okay, there was a question which is popping up, right? Where do we get this slides, right? So guys, where you have registered for the session, right? The same place we will upload the recording and the slides also would be available there as well. Hope that answers a lot of queries.
All right, so we'll just wait for 30 more seconds, I guess. Let other also join. The number is close to 300. Okay, I can still see people are joining. 319, 20. So guys, should we start at 350?
Yes, I guess people are still
Okay.
trying to join. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see the numbers increasing, right? Maybe one more minute. Yeah. Okay, I see still people increasing 32, 33. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your golden number, Manoj?
It was
400.
400. But
Okay, so
I'm
we
okay with 350 as well. But yeah, roughly around 350 people have joined so far.
okay.
Okay, so we have reached that number maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So I
We
think
can go to
good
the
to
next
start.
slide. Meanwhile, people will also join. Yeah. Perfect. So okay, we have got now almost 280 people ready. So you will be like, obviously you will see a question and you will get 4 options. One is right. You just need to pick the right answer for that. And it's again fastest finger first. I know you have already played a lot of quiz with UiPath. if you're a part of UiPath community. So I'll now go ahead and ask the first question. It's now popped up on your screen, which is why is standalone RPA often sufficient for modern enterprise workflows? And don't cheat, guys. Don't use GPT and all for this answer. Use your IQ. Hmm. I can see like most of you now know. So it's a good start. 252 people got it right. Great. Let's see the leaderboard who is winning. Okay. Okay. So Harmeet is leading the chart. So it's just the first question. So now let's move to the next one, which is this. What is the primary role of the orchestration layer? I hope our speakers have covered it pretty well. I'm sober, and the right answer is to coordinate bot AI capabilities and human judgment. This is where we need a complete orchestration layer. Let's see the leaderboard again. Okay, we have got Harmeet again on the top. Then we have got Meenal and Felix. Let's move to the question number 3, guys. And here's the question number 3. Again, this is from the today's session as well. What is HITL, human in the loop design? And this will also cover some of your doubts as well. And that is why we have put Q&A at the end. Oops. But I guess most of people have got it right. So HITL is a production pattern for high value and risky decisions where you think that, okay, if the bot produced something wrong or there are like stakeholders involvement, your stakes are also involved, then maybe you should definitely use human in the loop just to make sure that the data or whatever you are producing is right.